another important thing with working with newcomers and immigrants is actually to meet people whenever they are in their journey, sometimes not to push them too hard. You're not the person who can tell them, oh, I know the best for you. So the person who are talking to you is in charge of their own life. They are building their new life in Canada here. So, and they do know this life. One of my wonderful teammates shared that, like, you might be a newcomer in your country, but you are not a new to this life. So you already have this experience, you already have this skills.
Welcome back to the Newcomers podcast, people, where I explore what it means to be an immigrant with immigrants like myself. Today, I'm talking with Daria Lysenko, who spends quite some time working in the settlement services sector. And part of why I was wanting to talk to her was I've always had this argument that, well, it's an argument in my head about how I feel like immigrants should be the one who mostly work in the settlement services because they kind of understand what it means to basically move to a new country. Daria is of the opinion that it has to be balanced, like in the sense that Canadian born and the immigrants who are doing that. And so that I feel like this conversation is really about what is it like to work in settlement at this point in time, and is Dozie right or wrong? Not like as an argument, but yeah. Welcome, Daria. Happy to do this with you.
Thanks a lot, Dozie, for the invitation. I'm really glad to share my 50 cents on this topic.
I do think it's more than 50 cents, to be honest. I mean, I'm an outsider who has an opinion, and doesn't have to be right, but just an opinion. Because sometimes, like, and maybe it's a biased opinion, to be honest, because sometimes, yeah, you meet people and talk to them and you're like, I'm not sure you fully understand this. Like, and I'm saying, like, and fair play to everyone who's in the sector right now, people are putting the miles and doing the work, but you meet some people, you're like, nah, like you don't get it, like, and which is why that my argument comes from, which is why I say I would love more immigrants to spend time working in that sector because they get it, but you're saying that doesn't have to happen, and I would love to kind of understand why you say that, why you think so, and how what it's like working there right now, honestly, for you, because you're an immigrant too, and so you kind of get it.
Yeah, so actually different opinions about this because I've worked with multiple colleagues and some of them are temporary workers, some of them permanent residents like immigrants, some of them already received their citizenship, some of them Canadian born. And when I'm talking that not only immigrants can do this job, it's because it's always better to have diversity even within the sector because it's enriched our opinions, enrich our life and how we approach our work. So of course, if you're an immigrant, it might be a bit easier to start working right away because you have your life experience, because you have probably additional languages in your set, you can understand immigrant journey and so on. So it's like additional layers to help you balance probably the work that you are doing and adding additional advantages to this, like cultural connections. So you can be a cultural connector, you can be a cultural advocate for some people from belong to your community. However, I also see some benefits from those who actually Canadian born. And it's always something that can explain people and to people that it's something about Canadian workplace culture, about Canadians, and so on. So, for example, let's lead by example, right? So, if the person is a newcomer or an immigrant who've been in Canada for a while and joining the settlement sector, they have the immigration journey, they have like this kind of skills that I already mentioned, but they might not know all these holes, like rabbit holes, right? So to understand it, they might lack some of connections within the sector or with employers if they work in the employment sector table, and many more. So this way, Canadians who grew up in this territory might likely be in beneficial situation. So mixing both these categories of people, it will definitely benefit clients because they have connections, they have the best of all worlds in such situation. So not only immigrants, but Canadians. For immigrants, it's also lots of challenges if they started working in the settlement sector because sometimes it might be like traumatic or harmful for them, right? Because they all, especially for those who have been a refugee themselves. So if they hear the same stories, it might trigger something inside of them. To have somebody who can grant them, it's not always might should be a Canadian citizen. It might be actually anyone. I mean, they're another colleague from different community and so on. But someone who can lead the conversation, it's always helpful.
Mm. Fair point. Like, fair point. Especially the one you just said now about the creating distance between you and the work itself. But I think for me is, and this is more of a question, is like what does distance really even mean in that process? Because aside from the distance to help you deal with the possible triggers that come from you probably working a case that reminds you of your past, that kind of thing. I I feel like a big part of the conversation is around empathy, so
Mhm.
there's empathy for the case in front of you and empathy for yourself who has to create space. And in that case, which is the bigger thing to deal with, and which is the one that you can easily solve? Because in my head I kind of feel like empathy for the case is the biggest thing in there,
Mhm.
because empathy for self can be solved. Like you can solve that. Like you can speak to someone, you can speak to a psychologist. Like there can be people to help you solve that. But empathy for the case itself feels like the big thing, because it kind of leads to the other thing for me, which is empathy for the case probably helps you design better systems. Because sometimes I look at our immigration system, and I think that's where my argument or my thinking comes from. Is I do think it has a flaw because of what you just described now.
Mhm.
When I look at how the system is designed, and you wonder what would happen if you had more people who had gone through the system, both from a as a practitioner and as someone who experienced the system, helping designing the system. I wonder if that will come up with much better systems than we currently have.
Yeah, for sure. So when I just started working in non-profit sector, it wasn't in Canada. It was far away from here. And the first thing was being taught that you need to set professional boundaries because it is something that help you build relationship with your clients, but not without burdening yourself. Because for many new specialists who start working in sectors, in any sector in non-profit, it's actually always call it like a challenge because especially if you're an empathetic person, you want to help. Always you want to help. But if you help and don't have time limitation, or if you don't have separation between your work phone or your mobile phone that you use for personal reasons. So in one day you will experience that it's like burning out because you receive calls and during your weekends, during holidays, and so on. So and people in nonprofit organizations and settlement sector they actually experience this so often because yes, you want to help, but you also need to care about yourself, take care of yourself, because you cannot pour from empty cup,
Yes.
right? So, uh, of course, empathy it is something that's really necessary. You need to be really interested in the person case. So if you're working with a person, right? So you need to actively listen to the client. It's not only and typing, and doing something, actually listening, paraphrasing, asking questions that are relevant to the situation. Yes, taking some notes because it's necessary. You will forget about everything after this, after having meetings with 20 people, let's say all fewer during the week. So what I also understand that the first thing you need to have it is motivation to help people. The best what you can do is actually to help people in the way they want to be helped. Because I also heard that many times, like golden rules, that you need to approach the person how you want to be approached, but it doesn't work, especially in settlement sector, because we are also different. We have our cultural backgrounds if we are
Yeah.
immigrants. And what we need to understand, first of all, it's actually open our boundaries to be able to learn new stuff about different cultures and understand how it worked in Arabic, in Ukrainian, in Chinese, or any culture actually. And to know how to respond to this person based on their cultural backgrounds. It's always necessary. This is why immigrant background sometimes it's a big plus, right? But sometimes it's might something that be additional barrier to building these connections with
Yeah.
other immigrants, because you're assuming something. You have your own bias.
Oh, good.
It's
Oh,
like
good. Yeah.
you need to overcome this. You need to work on this. You need to learn more and do better. For those people who work for a while, they already might have some understanding, but not always, right? We always learning, we always improving how we approaching people. And the another important thing with working with newcomers and immigrants is actually to meet people whenever they are in their journey, not to sometimes not to push them too hard. You're not the person who can tell them, oh, I know the best for you. So the person who are talking to you is in charge of their own life. They are building their new life in Canada here. So, and they do know this life. One of my wonderful teammates shared that, like, you might be a newcomer in your country, but you are not a new to this life. So you already have this experience, you already have this skills and so on. So it's something that will definitely help people overcome their barriers. And we as a settlement workers, only those helpers who can guide them, who can provide some resources, who provide some tools to be successful. Sometimes motivate, sometimes empower, but we are not the people who in charge of someone's life, because only this person can decide what is the best for them.
Like that's a I find that interesting because so how do you control that? Because that's so hard. Like, I can imagine, like, how do because that's so hard to control.
Mhm.
Where someone is new to a country, you're trying to guide them, but you still need to kind of balance that with you're in control. All I am is just a guy. Like, how does Daria do that? For example, maybe that's how do you do it?
Uh, it's a tough question, because again, it's always individual approach. So first of all, what worked for me and might work for someone else is actually listen to people, listen carefully, listen actively. So in many cases, people will tell you their story. So you don't need to ask them some direct questions. So just to open the conversation, like what your expectation look like, what type of support do you need, and once they start sharing information, right? So you will see some points. Okay, maybe this, maybe some resources here, maybe some resources here, but not always, right? Because you cannot in one moment solve all problems of this person. It's impossible. So we are going typically step by step. Okay, today we are discussing about your, let's say, employment situation, or you want to receive certification, or you want to find education, and so on. In some organization, they also have a case manager. It's like a person who actually help navigate many different things in the life of this specific person or family. So they will create a plan, they will guide you through educational system, or they will help you to enroll kids in schools and so on. So but always is going to be listening people first, because if you just have in mind some numbers, oh, I need to reach this number, or I need to do this today. So you actually have to be kind of agile. You need to be flexible, understand, yes, you have a little goal, but put this person first and their needs first, because you might see that this person needs today probably not employment support, but maybe just like psychological support. And we as a settlement workers, we're typically the first point of interaction for newcomers. So they
Yeah.
might be not kind of like your kids, but some people who actually will ask for help. And from in many cases, settlement workers become like kind of mentors, guides for those people. So I'm not sure how to actually answer how navigate it, because there's so many layers between of this. But listening first, it is a thing that's opened the doors for future interactions.
Maybe I should jump to this question I've been thinking about since, which is, if you think about the sector as it is right now, what's it like working in that place right now?
It's a challenging, to be honest. Challenging for many reasons. So we have still, we talk about this, right? Anti-immigrant narratives happening. We have lots of clients who need us. We have the sector themselves experience some cuts and barriers, I would say. So it's not easy, but it's kind of rewarding, because if you help people and you like this, like if you like helping people, so you feel appreciated, you feel rewarded when your clients succeed, when you see there's a person who just recently moved to Canada, already have a job, they are building their career, or they moved to one position, they advance in this, or their kids doing well. So it's something that really encourages you to going forward and moving forward and helping more and more and more. So for those people who like me, who like helping people, I think it's the best what you can receive. So it's not about payment. I think people who looking for great salary and so on, they will come to corporative world. But for people who like helping other, I think it's the best what you can receive, especially for immigrants, because again, I'll share that and I'll repeat it again. So for immigrants, they already have kind of set of skills that help them be successful in settlement sector.
Hmm. If you could tell me, like, what has been, what is there one client or a case where, if you think about it, it's the best story you've ever had? Like, is there like one of that, or are there like many of them?
Uh, not only, of course, not only. I would only tell many great words about my colleagues who work in this settlement sector. So you will find here, if you're considering this sector for job opportunities, so you will find here lots of supportive people who actually not only support clients, but they also are ready to help you with new resources, with some educational training and so on. So just to have this supportive community, it is also a great benefit. So
Hmm.
you feel that you are not alone. So there are some people who understand you, who can guide you, who can teach you, who can exchange some ideas with you, and so on. So it's really beneficial. For second, it is again working in a profit sector. It's something that you can wear multiple hats. So if you like multitask, if you like learning new things, if you don't want to sit on the same task again and again and again, so this is something that you can actually use all your skills or try something new, because the world is changing, our sector is changing, evolving. So that's why it will help you build new skills as well and meet people from multiple backgrounds, like to find out about many more cultures that you sometimes never understand that they are here in Canada.
What's your biggest case win? Like, what's the biggest win you have right now? If you look back at your career so far in Canada, what's your biggest case win?
In my work, I
Yeah.
I cannot just tell about only one, because there's so many great stories that we had. We actually in my organization had Inspiring Future event. We just recently hosted our seventh event in the series, and it was nice to hear from one of our first panelists who actually an immigrant it's themselves, that, oh, I was just checking the pictures and find out one of our participants who just recently become a panelist sharing their story of success. So I think that this is a great example that we can see that some people just during only 2 years they build successful life in Canada. We had so many people who found jobs, who already become like management, management positions and so on. It's an employment side, but we also see lots of interesting stories of people who right now starting empowering other people. I remember from 2022, we had one of our first event, and I just recently talked to the person who attended to this event when I joined the organization, and she shared, "Oh, I even couldn't imagine just through these 4 years I would be in this position." So she joined a board of directors, one of organization, and so on. But 4 years ago, she didn't know anything about life in Canada. So 4 years and you see like a huge difference in people's life. I think it is the greatest stories that we could share when people actually found their way and continue growing, so become mentors for others, become guiders for others. So this is something that really empower to go ahead.
I want to go back to where we kind of kicked off this conversation from around
Mhm,
like the newcomers versus the Canadian born. And I feel like
mhm,
the big piece you're talking about there is really when we have that diversity, the immigrant or the newcomer to the country benefits the most from that, because basically you speak to someone who understands and empathizes with what you're going through, but you also meet someone who has what who understands all the nuances and all the rabbit holes,
mhm.
you know. But if you think about it, like, is there like one that you prioritize? Will one happen naturally, basically? Like, for example, would you learn the Canadian workplace norms naturally because you'll get into contact with the system? And so what that means is that you probably need more of the other one. Sorry, I'm kind of going back because I'm trying to justify my point.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
yeah.
but you get more value from having someone who just understands what you're going through and guides you through the system, because the other one will happen naturally as you settle and integrate.
Yeah, I would say in many cases for newcomers and immigrants who have been in Canada for a while, they might be kind of in similar position with Canadian borns, right? So if they already navigated the system, they're already successful in the industry and so on. Um, in addition, they even can speak the same language that client can speak. And in many cases, people more openly will share their stories if you share the same language, because
Yeah.
language barrier is a thing, and like understanding this is also might be beneficial for those who are considering work in settlement. Um, what I could say here is like for sector, still I think that like diverse diverse background anywhere that will enrich
Mm.
our communities. Diversity, right? So we have like having multiple opinions, having multiple people with multiple backgrounds in team, it is always beneficial. So that's why I cannot say that, let's say, 90% should be immigrants or 10% Canadians. I think there is not this math in this sector. What I would say is actually it's kind of need to be balanced and proportional based on the community that you work, because
Yeah, that's a good
I
point.
I'm in Victoria, I'm in Lanford, so it's quite would say still quite small community compared to Vancouver or Toronto area,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we see that, and again, immigrant categories here might be different. So we see that it depends, right? So depending on this, is it small community, is it rural community, who is there, what organizations there, how sector looks like, what industries are present. There might be always a balance between immigrants and Canadian born settlement workers. So there is no one answer for this question. So to saying people, oh, not only like this. No, it should be balanced and based on the specific community, specific region when you work with. And that's why we have a nice, great settlement managers who are actually in charge of hiring new people. I know that sometimes you can see if you somebody is considering applying for the job that um, there might be in addition you need to speak this language or this language or this
Yeah,
language,
yeah,
because yeah, they see that in their community right now is in demand, or they see more immigrants, clients who need these languages. That's why they will ask, okay, we need a person who speaks these languages. Even so, you're an immigrant, even so you have all the set of skills. However, if you like in this, that might stop you of applying. Or
mm,
in, like from different perspective, if you do have everything and you have this uh, language is an asset, so it might benefit you, it will be outstanding candidate if you're applying. So it's always a balance.
mm. But I think you beat me on this, to be honest.
Tell me.
No, no, I think you have. I think because it makes up. I didn't think of it that way, like in the sense that one is contextual. To be honest, like I think that itself is already makes a ton of sense. It's contextual. Two is that just the balance. I think for me, the big thing where why I've always thought that way, or why I always think that way, is while I agree, it doesn't. When I say that, it doesn't have to be 100%. It's like, oh, there has to be a balance. But I just feel like the system should have more immigrants than Canadian born, because the immigrants kind of get the system, or they they get it, because I feel like the immigrant settlement journey is a lot of empathy plus practical stuff. Like there's just a lot of empathy, because it's so interesting how a lot of the things that are done, they templatize it in a way, but you can't really templatize that. That's one. Then there's also the other part of it where sometimes you see some system design and you wonder yourself, who are they designing it for?
Mm,
You get like who saying you, and you're like, this is the, so, and that's where the one that I say, this is why you will need someone who understands the experience, because you look at it, who's like, who designed this? Like it's so obvious that this person didn't speak to an immigrant or someone who'd gone through the system before they designed that program.
hmm
Because
Yes.
yeah, sorry, no, so you continue about to say something. Yeah,
Yeah, I see what you mean. What I would also add to the conversation that within even settlement sector, we have multiple roles. So sometimes it's a case worker who work one-on-one. Sometimes it is ASL or link teacher who teach them English. So
yeah,
for immigrants, what is might be I cannot say disadvantages maybe, it's our pronunciation. So we carry it with us, even
yeah,
if we don't speak it in our mind, but we
yeah,
still have it. So Canadian born, it's always the
definitely,
best situation, right?
definitely,
To teach
yeah,
people proper language and so on, but not always. I know so many wonderful link teachers who are immigrants themselves. In addition, within the settlement sector might be employment. specific employment programs that's connected to really interesting things like healthcare or construction or so on. So having those people with experience here in Canada is also beneficial, especially if
Mm-hmm.
you talk about some, let's say, construction program. So we will see that person who already have Red Seal certification might be more productive in the role because they know all pros and cons, how you can go through RESEAL certification in construction industry, right? So if there are any immigrants who would like to apply, of course they would be in benefit. But if there is another Canadian-born person who already RESEAL and wants to get the job, so why not? I don't think that this is something that should stop people. And on interview process, there is actually interview process that help figure out is the person a great fit for the role or not. Because we're all different, we're all humans.
Yeah.
Some people have wonderful technical skills, but some people have, and it would be nice to have soft skills necessary for work. What I think many newcomers that I work with don't understand that how often soft skills are underlooked here or overlooked, right? So for newcomers, they don't always understand, even for their resume, that how really important to showcase your soft skills. So for nonprofit work and for settlement work, all your soft skills are really important because this is human interacting
Yes. Yeah.
way. You work with humans, you don't work with machines,
Yeah.
right? And this is kind of thing that again need to be showcased in the interview process and so on. Sometimes people who just don't understand our workplace Canadian workplace culture, so they trying to put everything in technical. Oh, I have this digital, la 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 la, but it's not really necessary to actually help your employer, future
Mm-hmm.
company, employer understand that you do have this soft skills, communication skills. That's empathetic. You're empathetical. You can work. You can do more and more and more. So, boss, I I'm not an I cannot say that I'm advocate for Canadian born because I think I'm advocate for justice in this case and the best solution because I typically empower actually newcomers and immigrants to apply for such position because I understand that they will definitely be successful if they want to help people.
Yeah.
The main thing you need to want to help. It's not the same something that you will receive money for helping. You want to be patient about what you're doing. And for any job, settlement, not settlement, when you're applying, if you're patient about your job, you will succeed because employers will see that you're really into this, that you're not just come because I need a job. You come because you want this to do something to help people in settlement sector, for example.
Yeah. I feel like the biggest lesson here, aside from just Dozie, shut up and stop saying that, is that like if you need to be able to, you need to say I want to help folks and I want to do this. It's not just something you just go do because you're job hunting. If you do that, you're going to just get burnt out because either you will complain too much or you will just not like it.
Yeah, and in our sector, we also have like lots of programs that help newcomers build relationship with indigenous peoples. So sometimes you will see also indigenous peoples working for the settlement sector. So it is a reality. It is a nice thing that is happening because we do need multiple opinions. We do need multiple people with diverse backgrounds because as more different opinions we have, it's built as a more equity society. It's
Yeah.
more something that we understand that, oh, it's work from this perspective, it's also work from this perspective. We also need to have people with multiple gender identities because again, it's enrich our experiences, it's enrich our understanding. If you only look at the uh, one topic from one side, we will also receive the same decision and
Yeah.
we will overlook everything else. It's not always right. That's why I do want more newcomers to work in settlement sector, but I also understand that we need different people from different
Yeah.
backgrounds.
Before we go to the book of questions and we're
Mhm.
rounding up here, I think I have just one question for you, which is if you could make this sector better, what are these three things that you would do?
Three things? Only one?
Okay, just one. Just one.
Just one. Oh, it's it's difficult to choose only one.
Okay,
I
so you
think
want to do 10?
I will start. I start from the end. I start from the end. What I love about this sector, I love people, because typically you will find here caring people who really wants to help. What I would think that it could be improved is actually funding, right? So knowing that so many temporary workers and students also need our help, but right now especially there are not so many programs open for temporary workers and students. So this is something I really want to see in the future. So I understand that it's not a popular topic right now, and we really see that so many challenges for anyone living in Canada. However, I really want to see something being done for people who are new to Canada, like how it used to be done many years ago, right? To feel this welcoming communities for anyone. So this is a thing that, in my opinion, need to be changed. Maybe with time, I have my hope, and let's see how it goes. Hmm.
I think I don't know. Like it feels like we're just in a very interesting spot right now with immigration, with settlement, number of people. There are valid arguments to be made. There are also arguments that you're like, what are you talking about? Um, and which is probably why it's good to have more people like you talking because I feel like you've lived both sides of it, in the sense that you've been on the receiving end of those services, and then you're also now giving out those services, and just having more of you talking about that and saying, "Hey, we could do this and make it better." You know, we need more of that. Like that's just what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I also understand that like many people sharing this idea that temporary workers and students in here like in temporary status, and the main idea actually to come, study, and go back, or come, work, and go back because you're temporary. But for many years, and how the Canadian history, I may be wrong, but Canadian history, what I see is built that people came here temporary with an idea to stay and build their life here.
Yeah.
That's why so many of them are also asking for support. And it's not always possible to do as a settlement worker. It's all possible to do as a volunteer with other organizations to help them navigate the system, because one day they will become a next Canadian citizen, new citizen, right?
Mm.
So if we are welcome people, if we provide support from the same when they ask for this help, it might be beneficial for every one of us, for all community members, not only for temporary workers and new students.
I think the unpopular opinion no one wants to talk about is I think it is a lie to say that temporary is a word for temporary. Like I feel like across the world, immigration in general, people have always kind of known. So let's use students for example. For most countries, there's some countries where if you came as a worker, you were clear that you were a worker and you had no pathway to become something else, and so you knew clearly in your head that you just came as a worker, and then after a while, you would either go to another country or you would go back home. But I feel like in most countries, if you came as a student, I'll focus on that. Though. If you came as a student, you would basically in your head somehow it was that you came as a student and you would go from there and become a permanent citizen in that, or rather you'll become home. So whenever I find people saying this thing about the student was you came and you were supposed to go back, I'm like that's a lie. Like I'm not sure that has ever been a thing. Maybe temporary workers no, but with students, it's always been clear that students has been a pathway. Now we can have a conversation around maybe we brought in too many students and what that means. But let's not try to make it sound like as if it's the student's fault. Like the system has always run like that. Should it have run like that? That's a different conversation, but let's not do this where we gaslight people into saying to them, oh, you came as a student, so you when you're done with your study you go back. Like, no, like across the world I don't think that has ever been a thing in the world. Like any country you go, most countries you go to, if you go in as a student, the assumption was that after you student you started working. After you worked, you probably got some paper that allowed you live there much longer, or then you moved to another country, or you settled in that country. Now all of a sudden we see people saying, "Oh, you came as a student, you should go back after studying." I'm like, why are we saying that? Why? That's a white lie. Like, I'm not ashamed to say that. Like, that's a white lie. I don't think that has ever been a thing. Someone correct me if I'm wrong out there, but I don't think that has ever been a thing. With workers, we can have a different conversation around workers. Like if you came to work, but even that, you could actually even argue that most of the time when people come to work in a country, the assumption is at some point that person literally stays there permanently, more often than not. But
I think it needs additional conversation about this because it's a huge
yeah, it's
topic.
unpopular, it's big, it's just a lot of complexities. But I think for me, what is not frustration, but what is just sad to see is we're simplifying the argument into very little things, yes or no, this or that, because we want to win points. But it's like, why don't we have the conversation with all the complexity and the nuances that exist there and then say, how do we solve it? Because as long as we keep simplifying it, we're never going to solve it. We won't solve it because then it's always me versus you. Like, there's no right or wrong here. Is we want the best for Canada, right? So how do we fix that? Is okay, maybe we have too many students. Okay, that's okay. That's a conversation to be had, and it's a hard conversation, but it's the truth. But what I don't like is the one where we start to gaslight those who came here with the assumption that, oh, when you came as a student, you had a pathway to become a citizen, for example.
Yeah, I think for Canadian, in Canadian history, there was lots of examples. Actually, immigration systems allowed students to become a permanent resident one day, right? So, and how it was being used, it was being used, right? So we cannot change it right now, but we also see that it's been changed right now. We also see that it's actually this door are already closed for many, right? So we see less opportunities there to become permanent residents.
Yeah.
But could we blame international students for using this opportunity? I don't think so, because it's illegal. So, and everybody who want to become a permanent resident through educational pathway, they actually use it.
Yeah.
So, like, what we see is a result. We see or it's a result. So, but yeah, it's a really difficult topic.
Yeah. There's a lot of light coming in.
Yes, I will move it.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. So I mean, I guess it's a sad place to end this, but yeah, I guess that's it's just a reality that we kind of have to deal with here. Book of questions.
Mm-hmm.
So you just pick one number, 1 to 291.
21.
21 says, if the evidence of intelligent life elsewhere in the universe were discovered, would it alter your core beliefs or sense of self?
Could you repeat again?
If we found the evidence of intelligent life elsewhere in the universe, would it change your core beliefs or your sense of self?
It's actually an interesting question. I don't think that it will change, because I already know that there's some been discovered in Mars or somewhere. And I will still believe in humanity. I will still believe in empathy. I will still believe that only together we can make things better. So it is my core values, and I think this is something that will definitely be valuable for any time in our history. So being kind and being empathetic, that is something that will help build this relationships anywhere in the world, anywhere in the universe, right? Because like it is something that make us humans being better version of ourselves as humans, to build this rapport with each other in the best possible way, in trying trying to help, trying to make things the better, trying to improve and overcome some barriers, knowing who we are as humans.
It's interesting because I'm reading a book about all this right now. That's another complex topic about
Mhm.
how humans see the world, but that's an interesting call. Thank you so much, Daria. Thank you. And thank you for helping me change my mind, or help me see the other part of the argument. Because I feel like I was very stubborn about it in some way. And maybe part of that was there's some experience I've seen happen to me and to my friends in where you see services. Like I didn't use any settlement service. And that's because when I landed, like they sent me a CV resume, and I'm like, yo, I have an MBA. Like, I'm not trying to sound arrogant. I have an MBA. I know how to write. I don't need to be taught how to write a CV. I
Mhm.
actually had a whole class in my MBA that taught me how to put together a CV. And so I was like, you read through my profile, and this is what you're advising me to do. Is this for me or for someone else? And I'm not trying to be arrogant, but it just felt a bit out of place. And I feel like I've just carried that in my head since. But again, I also say, then there's also the other part of it, which is like immigrants. I mean, for like just people, once you've gone through the journey, you kind of understand it much better, and you're able to provide much better service. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was a fun conversation. I enjoyed talking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation, Dozie. It was great being here and sharing my thoughts.
No, I mean I should call this rules for working in the settlement sector. But thank you. And that's it, everyone. As always, we're in Spotify, we're in Apple Podcasts. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can find us there with Daria Lysenko. Thank you and have a beautiful day.